Computer system. Actually, that's the official time. So I'll call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. First item is roll call. Elzad, Michael Kane,
Here.
Barbara Tarbox.
Yeah.
Sue Sutherland.
Here.
Stephen Hurchuk.
Here.
Evan Fitwell here. All our members are present, have a quorum. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes of previous meetings. We have minutes of April 26th meeting. Would somebody like to make
I would make a motion
Motion
to
to
approve the
approve.
minutes of April 26th.
or a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Anyone have any corrections? None? I just had one minor item on page 3 under report of commission on that first item where it says Commissioner Southern volunteered. And I'd like to insert what and was appointed to be the liaison. Anyone have any other items? If not, we'll vote on the motion to approve the minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Motion, because I know I don't need to, but you have a full house, so.
We have 4. Motion is carried, 4 in favor, 1 abstention. How's that? The next item is public communications. Does anyone have anything on the commission to bring forth? Any staff have any?
Nothing other
What's
than
been
what's on
received?
the agenda and what you were sent today.
Okay. And we have received after the package went out several more items of correspondence. Before I open it up to the public, I'd like to just identify whose correspondence we have so people don't have to make a statement again. We received one from Jeff Blevins, Greg Bush, Dennis Cambria, Eileen Cosgrove, Robin Crandall, Mary Cuthbert, George and Mary Davis, Robert DeGroot, Mary Ferguson, Jeff Kerr, Jeffrey and Stephanie Kerr, Jim Marchand, Adam McGuire, Catherine Pratt, and Ken and Ann Soder, Linda Vogel, Richard Waters, Don Davis, and Melissa Wright. Before, also, I think we should go over what our process for approving any changes to the regulations. We would probably hold some workshop sessions before we handle the 2 that we seem to have a lot of comments from the public on, and prepare in conjunction with consultants, the wording change. And then they are reviewed by the commission, approved for presentation. They have to go out with a legal ad in the paper and followed by a public hearing before any action is taken on the proposed changes. We're probably, actually the first time we'll be able to address, say, short-term rentals and problems with data processing centers with the consultant would probably be sometime in June.
My apologies.
Because we won't be able to set our first meeting up until at least sometime in June. So it's going to be several months before we have anything that the public would really be interested in seeing
June 2022?
this year.
Okay, that's not a few months.
Next month. That's the earliest. It may not be, if, depending on the consultant's schedule, we may have to postpone a little after that. But it's not something that happens instantly. And it's not something that is done in secret either. Okay. So I'll open it up if anybody in the public, additional people in the public wishes to address this tonight. And so we have a lot of people. I like to hold the comments down to, like the council does, to 3 minutes. Yes, go ahead. If you want to go up and stand up and
Am I preempting you?
your
on that?
name,
Go for it, Tom. Do it.
and give your name and address. please.
Sure. My name is Tom Bradham. I live at 7 Gravel Street, Mystic. And I'm going to be a little, like some other people here, probably a little wacky tonight because we didn't get any sleep because we had a water main last night, right on Gravel Street. And they were out there from 11 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock this morning trying to fix it. And fingers crossed, we still have to boil the water, but it may be better.
It was on Channel 3 News.
Yeah, I saw we made Channel 3 News, you know?
First Street.
Big news, don't come to Mystic for dinner. It's great. I usually say that quite often, don't come to Mystic for dinner. Dear members of the Groton Planning and Zoning Commission, I am writing as a member, because I emailed this to staff earlier this week. I'm writing as a member of a community.
I think we've already received it. Is that true?
I hope so, yes,
Yeah. Okay, we already have seen it.
okay.
Yeah.
Can I
Oh, yes, but you're wasting everybody's time.
I am wasting everyone's time, then I won't bother. Then I will
Well,
just
I
ask
don't-
you.
All right. Yes, we can. But we read everything very carefully and pay attention to it. Not like
Well,
throwing it away.
I did email it to the commission, and it really states some claims that I made earlier to you at the end of 2021 after the town council meeting on short-term rental ordinance. And I've been dealing with this issue since about 2018. So I'm relatively familiar with it. I served on the mayor's task force on short-term rentals. And I'd say in closing, I'd urge the zoning commission to direct the zoning official to develop a plan to enforce the current zoning regulations that clearly prohibit short-term rentals and restore our community to us, the residents and voters of Groton. And then I'd add just a bit, if I may, from Alyssa Wright, the Honorable Alyssa Wright, the former representative from the 41st District at the State House and the State Capitol. And in her letter to you today, on page 3, she quoted Justice Thurgood Marshall and his dissenting opinion in the Village of Belterre versus Boreas. And Justice Marshall said at that time, zoning is a complex and important function of the state. It may indeed be the most essential function performed by local government, for it is one of the primary means by which we protect that sometimes difficult to define concept of quality of life. I've lived in Mystic since around 1980, more or less. I'll let you do the math. And I've lived on Gravel Street the last 10 years. And our quality of life has been severely affected by the growth of short-term rentals in the downtown district. It really has. And I'd like you to consider enforcing the current regulations and directing the zoning official to do so. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else wish to address?
I just want to give you, I only have six copies. So I thought you were going to be less today. I'm sorry.
Was this sent to us already?
No, not yet. Just, this is interesting. It's hello, my name is Arnaud Bourgeois. I'm on 13 Gravel Street. This is an article from the day, a local newspaper, dated of December 19, 2016. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. So I'm going to keep it short. I'm just going to read a couple of passages of the article. It's at a time when the local economy can use all the helps it can get. And just want to remind you that's where we are right now, between the price of fuel and taxes and COVID. Stonington, at the time there was an article about home rentals in Stonington, should not formulate a way to repel visitors by eliminating Airbnb or VRBO type properties from town. Contending that having strangers living temporarily in their neighborhood somehow endanger them and their way of life, some residents would like to ensure not short-term rentals are available to visitors in private rooms and houses. Such a ban will be a huge mistake, not only in Stonington, but in any municipalities considering this issue. Most short-term rental cause no headache for neighbors. Instead, they provide considerable income for homeowners, a way to make visitors a true part of the community and a much needed source of income for the state, and are in fact a long-standing tradition in some neighborhoods. Going down, and I say short-term rentals also provide income for the state and the communities in which they are located. Airbnb, for example, now directly pay 50% state lodging tax on any reservation made for a Connecticut property. More visitors in a community means more spending in stores, restaurants, and attraction. Going down, I say no homeowner is guaranteed a neighborhood where no one will ever host a large raucous party, for example, or even that a neighbor will well maintain their property. So I just wanted to read this and give you an example of that. Thank you very much.
Just checking the date, that was 2016.
2016. And follow that, they also hired a company. And
That doesn't matter. I just wanted to.
yeah, 2016, and they came up with a
So-
full report like
Yeah,
you guys are doing
years
right
ago.
now.
Okay.
And I have a copy of the report if you want to do it.
No, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michael Saracen and I live at 27 Gravel Street. Thanks for letting me speak to you tonight. Having served on the Historic District Commission for about 5 years, I know what it takes to be on a board, and I appreciate your hard work and dedication for our town, the great place that it is. Mystic is at a crossroads right now, and this commission must decide that it's going to take action regarding short-term rentals. It's not an easy decision to make, as there are worthy arguments from both sides. Communities near and far are wrestling with this issue as well. We've lived on Gravel Street for about 20 years and love our community. Towns like Mystic, Stonington Borough, Noank, center of Essex are unique. The historic villages of each of these towns have survived. How special that is cannot be overstated. Prior to coming to Mystic, we lived in the suburbs. Living on a 1 or 2 acre lot is much different than having a neighbor's house 10 or 20 feet from yours. It's more, the houses are 180 years old. You know how fortunate we are to have lived here these past 20 years. One of the things we found appealing about moving to our neighborhood was being in a historic district. It offered us protection that the character of the neighborhood would be maintained. We saw vibrant downtown shops and restaurants, a charming neighborhood where neighbors chatted across fences and our kids and our pets could play in each other's yards. Our expectations had not been disappointed until recently. Over the past few years, with the advent of STRs, we have seen a blurring of the distinction between commercial downtown in the neighborhood. And that's very concerning to us. We've seen an increase in litter, trespassing, noise. Friends and neighbors have spoken to you about what it's like to live next door to an STR. We are frightened at the prospect that one of the houses adjacent to our home will be converted to a hotel with endless cars and people overwhelming houses that were designed for single-family use. I'm told that there are now over 200 STRs in Mystic. My concern isn't as much with the owner-occupied houses, where somebody rents out a bedroom in the house in which they live. Well, parking is a concern, but that can be tackled another time. I'm concerned about houses being rented, entire houses being rented, in essence, hotels, taking roots in our neighborhoods, changing the character of our residential zone. Let's face it, businesses have an insatiable appetite for profit. When you give business people a loophole to make money, one smart person figures it out and a bunch of others pile on. Groton's existing zoning regulations do not list short-term rentals as an allowable use. Hotel-type uses are only allowed in commercial zones, but by not enforcing the existing residential regulations, the Commission is creating a loophole which allows houses to be converted into hotels. Commercial uses typically have a higher value because of the income they can generate. By allowing de facto hotels to operate in a residential zone, you're encouraging people to reevaluate what their houses be worth. They deploy it in an alternative fashion. When someone realizes that their house could be worth more because it can generate income as a commercial enterprise, more houses are going to be converted to STRs. Same would be the case if you converted a house into an office or a retail store. That one's just easier to recognize as a conversion. It's prohibited by zoning. We see evidence that houses are selling for much higher prices because of the anticipated revenue an operator can get renting them as an STR. It's gone so far that hotel chains like Marriott are buying houses in communities such as Newport and the Hamptons. My guess is they do so because hotels are either not permitted there or it's cheaper than operating a full-service hotel. I would submit to you that, like the protection the historic district offers, to maintain the outside appearance of our houses, our zoning regulations offer us the protection that residential zones will not morph into commercial zones. The regulations must be enforced. At some point in the future, hotels pervade. I would come to realize it's a better deal for Renee and I to convert the buildings on our property to STRs. Our dock would be a real amenity to our hotel enterprise, and it'll make me a lot of money. But what would that do to our neighborhood and to my neighbors in the 4 houses that surround us? Well, some would move, some would convert to hotels, and those that stayed would suffer. And our neighborhood would be lost forever. That's the direction we're heading. That is the crossroads that's ahead of us, and that's why we need you to act immediately. Now, hotels belong in Mystic, and we welcome tourists, but hotels belong in commercial areas. There, they're subject to building codes, requiring, amongst other things, strict adherence to fire codes, sprinklers, sections of egress. Building codes include adequate on-site parking. Importantly, on-premises management. Those are just a few. I believe that this commission must act now and instruct the zoning enforcement officer to enforce existing zoning regulations that do not allow STRs. An option for owner-occupied STRs may be to rent their spaces for stays in excess of 30 days, which is what the state defines as a long-term rent. We have a small cottage on our property, which we rent on a yearly basis. Our tenants have become members of the community. They're not transient guests, but have been members of the book club, employees of local businesses, and naval officers. They are neighbors. We're at a crossroads. Please help save our neighborhood by keeping residential and commercial uses in their respective zones.
Anyone else wish to address us?
My name is Paul Beat. I live at 7 Borough Street. And I also have a short-term rental on 275 Knowing Road. That we rent out short-term, and I would just like, I wanted to just respond to certain points. I got a bunch of these at my house. There was one of them that was in my door. There was one of them that was on one of my cars. There was another one on the front lawn. And so it's hard to talk about some of the points. I understand that there's a lot of fear that goes on when you live in a neighborhood and the house across the street or the house next door all of a sudden becomes a short-term rental. The same thing happened to my house on Borough Street. The house across the street became a short-term rental, and I said, as I was listening to my neighbors, there goes the neighborhood. But I have to just tell you, and you can look at my house at 275 Knowing Road. Nobody takes better care of their house than I do. Nobody. None of you people in here take as good a care of their house as I do of mine. Right. Part of the reason that I can do that is because I have short-term rentals are profitable, and you can take care of it. You can put the copper gutters on it, and it's not going to hurt you because they're paying for it. But what does that do to property values? Well, it does. It makes them go up, right? But when I moved on my house in 7 Borough Street, it was 3 apartments, right? And over the course of 10 years, I changed it back into a single-family home. And you know what I did for all of my neighbors that lived around me? There's 10 houses that abut my property. I increased their property value, right? Just by taking care of my house, all right? You can't control who your neighbor is going to be, but what I can tell you is that short-term renters, what they do is they have a screening process that goes on that does screen the people that are coming in. Right? I want to just give a statistic to Tom, I believe, who counted the 1,500 overnight tourists in the house. I think it was. I have 3 boys plus my wife, and if you take us 5 living in that house 365 days a year, plus the Coast Guard kids that we sponsor on the weekends, you've got 2,500 guests that go in and out of my house, every year, and not 1,500 that he's complaining about. It's like, if you want to see wear and tear on a house, you'll have 3 teenage boys and you'll have 5 Coast Guard kids over at your house every weekend, right? That creates wear and tear. That creates noise, right? That creates a parking situation. I've got 5 cars, right? The Coast Guard kids come with I've got 10 cars in my driveway and on my street, right? That's what happens when you live in a community. You understand that people go through changes. Anyway, there's a lot of things about STRs causing higher property taxes, and it just isn't true, right? What causes higher property taxes is a budget, right? The town comes up with a budget, they need to pay for it, and then they adjust the mill rate to pay for it, and that's it. Does it increase your property value to have somebody have a nice house next door to you? That it might, but that's not such a bad thing, right? It all depends on which side you're looking at it. There's a lot of, and I don't want to go over my 3 minutes and be respectful. There's a lot of, I bought that house, the first house I bought in Mystic in the 1980s. I've been here since the 80s. We paid $113,000 for that house, right? And when we sold it for $340,000. And then I bought the new house for $330,000. And I'm sure that it's doubled, right? That's what happens to property values. But it's not just here, all right? My mom bought a condo in Scottsdale, Arizona for $310,000 7 years ago. And she passed, unfortunately, but we just signed a contract for $575,000 for a 3-bedroom condo, right? It's not just here, it's everywhere. Property values are going up everywhere. It's not just here. We're lucky enough to live here, right? And what we do is we share what we have with people who come in, with families that come in, right? For family reunions. I watched that house across the street where the Gleasons lived. And the first thing that I noticed was how well they took care of their house. They took better care of their house than any of our other neighbors. And neighborhoods are funny because I've lived on the Stonington side and the Groton side in different neighborhoods. And you know what? Some neighborhood communities are tighter than others, right? They just are, right? You know, I've also lived in I have a house in Old Mystic, and I'll tell you what, the neighbors there, I feel tighter with them than the property that I live in on Borough Street that I lived in for 23 years, right? Neighborhoods are different and neighbors are different. I just want to say one thing about Gravel Street. I remember when I moved here, and it's gone through transitions where they were single family houses, right? And then they transitioned. All right, you know, the Mason Hall became condominiums, right? It wasn't designed to do that, but it was a transition.
Still residential zone.
Right, I understand that. But what
You should be, wait a minute,
All right.
excuse me, we should be addressing the commission, not the.
Yeah, my point is, and that's okay, I appreciate
3 minutes,
it. But my point in all of this is that it changed. Short-term rentals are different. They're not hotels, right? They're there for people, for family reunions, for people to come to Mystic, and yeah, they do spend some money, right? For everybody. It's what makes the tourism in this town go. So anyway, I hope I haven't gone over my time. I just wanted to respond to some of this stuff. All right, thank you.
Anyone else wish to address this? Yes.
Watching the clock.
Okay, oh, with me, you're watching.
No, how about all the others?
Yeah, first of all, thank you all for what you're doing here, and I know this is tough work. I do a lot of work with
Your name
organizations.
and address.
I'm sorry, my name's Joe Murley. I live on 14 Pearl Street down in Mystic, and I have what you call a short-term rental. I just call it rental property right next door. So I live next door to my rental property. And I have to tell you, the experience has been very good for us. We've met some wonderful people. We've remained friends with some of the people that have come for a weekend, and we still stay in touch. I love it when the Coast Guard Academy is having the graduation ceremonies, and we get all these coasties staying there, and they're celebrating the fact that they're finally getting out of that and going about their career. I really feel connected to the community because of that short-term rental. I have seen the change. I have been in Mystic about 20 years. And I remember when we rebuilt the drawbridge, it took 3 years. And it was really loud in the wintertime. Do you remember when in the wintertime, nobody came to Mystic? I lived there then. And there were jackhammers and sandblasters and painters working all through the winter to get that bridge in shape. And everybody was complaining. And I just kept saying, no, you don't understand. This is going to help us. We're going to be a better community. We're keeping up Mystic. We forget that Mystic became really quiet for a long period here. We forget that downtown area had empty stores. We forget the time before we redid the streetscape, which everybody thought, not everybody, but a lot of people thought was a big boondoggle. I said, no, this is good. This is helping to increase our property values. It's helping to build the community. It's helping to build the culture that we're dealing with. And the one thing I would encourage all of us to think about is, what's the real problem you're trying to solve? Is it noise? Is it crime? Is it litter? Is it parking? If those are the problems we're dealing with, instead of automatically saying it's STRs, let's give it an initial so we can just spit it out quickly, so it becomes a buzzword. Let's really think about the whole picture. The restaurants downtown have quadrupled in size. We have traffic that we just didn't have before. And it's not because of STRs necessarily, that's part of it, but it's because of the development of downtown that has made the entire town more valuable to us. And it's built our culture and our community. And we have to think about the heritage of this town. The heritage of this town. Walk down the historic district, read those signs on all those historic buildings. Those were all independent business people working out of their homes. Carpenters, blacksmiths, farriers, shipwrights, all working out of their homes next to one another in peace. So the idea that a business can't be in those houses doesn't have historical roots. This is a recent thing. So think about the problem we're trying to solve. If it's noise, we have noise ordinances. If it's litter, which by the way, I live 2 houses
We
away.
don't have a noise.
I live 2 houses or 3 houses away from the Harp and Hound, and every morning I have to pick up beer cans out in front of my house. I don't blame STRs for that. I blame other things for that.
Wrap it up.
Yes, I'm going to wrap it up. All I'm saying is our heritage here is a group of independent business people living a heritage of serving the community. We're continuing to do that. And the few instances in which STRs are owned by large businesses don't represent the $22 million in contribution and income that these STRs provide to the town. The bulk of it is individuals like us in this room owning houses, making a little bit of extra income to fund our retirement. That's what we're doing. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm Renee Madison in 27 Gravel. Michael, my fiance, just spoke briefly. So I have neighbors that are STRs, have STRs. I'm sitting here and they're great neighbors and they take care of their properties and we don't really have issues with them. I don't know what goes on with all the other STRs that I don't see. I've heard horror stories from other people about having to live next door to them, but so we don't really want to hurt the ones that are owner occupied. Our big, concern is about the non-owner occupied, the ones that are commercial LLCs. They're buying the properties. They say, we're not gonna do anything with this. We're gonna, live here, and then they go away, and you don't even know who owns the property. All right, and there's nobody watching who's coming and going. They say they're gonna have beds for 8 people, 15 people show up. I mean, it's just, I've heard horror stories from people who have to live next door to them, and I don't want to be one of those people. I have on Gravel Street a couple of properties that neighbors, we haven't even met them yet, but they've bought the properties and they're going to be doing major renovations. One of them is going to be knocked down apparently, the other one heavily renovated, and both of them actually have double lots as well. So Michael and I are questioning, okay, so what do we expect here? One couple lives in Tennessee. Are they going to now turn their house into an STR and then maybe build another, cottage or something like we had and make that an STR? I mean, the way it is right now, because you're not enforcing the zoning regulations, which are in fact in place for you to enforce, anybody can do anything. I mean, I could open a gas station on Pearl Street at this point. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. It really is at this point. I think we need to stop and we need to think about this and enforce what's there now. And then we can talk about changes. We can talk about how we work through some of these, owner occupied. Again, we're not opposed to these, but they need to be regulated. We need to know where they are. We need to understand what's going on. And, right now we just ask that you enforce the regulations that are there. That's in your purview to do that. And we can at least stop the proliferation of, additional LLCs buying up properties right now until we figure this out. Thank you.
Bruce McDermott, 328 Knowing Groton Mystic. Good evening. I won't go over some of the other points. Really, the main point that we have about STRs is they take people out of a neighborhood. You lose your neighbors. 235 Noank Road. I used to have a drink with that fella, and the lady that moved into the house after he passed away. That's no longer possible. I now have an STR moving right in next door to me at 340 Noank Road. 3,500 square foot house. They're gonna have people come in families, and that's what their modus operandi is going to be. So the neighbor there is gone, whom I knew and sold the property to, unfortunately. But it's just, that's what the problem is. Wouldn't you rather have a neighbor, somebody you could talk to, than a transient moving in and out of your neighborhood all the time? But I'd like to address something else. Noank has prohibited STRs after deliberating for 2 years. West Hartford bans them. Ledyard has done the same thing while allowing owner-occupied STRs. A reasonable tack, I think, away from a full ban. But Groton finds itself unable to follow its own rules. Noank's chairman, Rick Smith, has noted that any use not explicitly allowed in the zoning regulation is prohibited, but prohibition has not been enforced. Many of us believe this is Groton's problem as well. Most zoning says that what is not enumerated is prohibited, not our zoning enforcement officer or department. Incredibly, the zoning rules were rewritten around 2018, and yet nobody involved had the prescience to make STRs a problem. Airbnb is not a brand new phenomenon. They've been around since 2008, and they really just took hold in around 2011. Are Groton's professionals really conversant with what is going on in other communities? And why could they not bring themselves to specifically mention STRs as a prohibitive use? Our regulations say hotels are not permitted in residential zones. STRs are obviously hotels. To say otherwise is to stretch the regulation beyond its intent and turn a blind eye. And in fact, the preamble to our regulations that we all get when we're involved in zoning says that you have to work for the quality and peace of the community, and that's what it's all about. Since the updated regs have taken effect, in all of this time, no written opinion has been rendered by P&Z staff on STRs, a clear sign that they do not want to commit their actions to perpetuity. Might something in writing be the basis for a challenge? How can you enable a policy so transformative to the town without committing a rationale in writing? If this was a business, it would never happen. People that did something like that would no longer be employed. This is either a lack of judgment or purposeful ignorance by the staff. It's hard to tell which, but the effect is apparent. They have presided over a dissolution of neighbors and neighborhoods with this STR intrusion. In 2021, an ordinance was written by John Reiner, the head of the department, who lives in Rhode Island, and the town attorney, Mr. Cody, that essentially blessed STRs to the detriment of us who have to put up with their use. I think that tells you something. The ordinance was not approved, thankfully, after they spoke against it. What about members of the commission? We who volunteer in local government do so because we want a better Groton. We're well-meaning people serving a key function to make local government reasonable and responsive. We make the policy and should not be timid about doing so. With STR zoning, we can look to recent local regulation from Ledyard Noank for direction. It's already in place. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. They have listened to their people. So should we stop this STR proliferation, which is eviscerating our neighborhoods. While you evaluate your position and wait for a subgroup, you have to tell our zoning enforcement officer, Tom Zanarini, that he shall interpret existing rules as they were meant to be interpreted and not favor investor profit over community. If you decide you must, the commission should enact provisions quickly to clarify what needs clarification in your mind to accomplish a firm STR hotel regulation. You have models to look to. I know a lot of people who own STRs. They all tell me, Bruce, you got to get in on this deal. We're making a fortune here. That's what it's all about. It's simply about money. It's not about people coming to town and sharing Mystic with them. It's not about that. You have to be naive to believe that, and I'm sure you don't. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address us tonight? Yes, in back row.
Hi. My name is John Davis. I live at 198 Shore Avenue, and I just want to correct the record and take some exception to a previous comment. I believe my property is the best taken care of in Groton, and we're starting tours this weekend, so thank you for your consideration.
Good to follow.
I'm John Hespler, Ledyard. And some of these people are making
people are saying at the SDR seem like their inmates are on work release programs. When you go away with short-term rental, I think you're in pretty good spirits. Not shoveling the driveway, not cutting the grass. You're in good spirits. Imagine if you were to invite some of them to go over and have a beer, it would.
I'm gonna have.
Thanks.
There you go.
Anyone else wish to address this?
Must have been the letter, but kind of softened it. I'd rather replace it if I could.
You can. I mean, it's really.
It's
these
half
are
as long as it was.
information for us to read one
Yeah, I was
read.
gonna read the first and last paragraph.
Name and address again.
Living 17 Ashby Street. 23 years ago this fall, I bought 17 Ashby Street in Mystic Historic District. It was dilapidated grade 4 unit apartment building. Peter Wilcox sold to me for less than what he paid, mine being his only offer. Since then, with my two hands, I've slowly restored some of the charm back in the 1831 home after Ransford Ashby, who bought it from his father-in-law, Elijah Rathburn, where he and his wife, Lucreta, and their 7 children once lived. A few years ago, my neighbor at Natalie Building, having noticed my improvements, asked me to serve on the DeBess Smith Historic Home Commission, chaired by Lorraine Santangelo, which I did for several years. Over the years, I've seen many changes in Mystic, some good, like burying the power lines and installing period streetlights, restoring the charm of downtown Mystic. Some not so good. The last 10 years, our historic district commission was recently changed. And now they don't enforce like they used to some of the rules and regulations. In the last 5 years, non-Mystic resident turned the Spicer Mansion into a bed and breakfast, an actual bed and breakfast, where a lobbyist out of DC sued him $26,000 because he couldn't have 170 people show up for his wedding reception. The non-res have absolutely no consideration of our community, our neighborhood, renting rooms, transients, serving meals to non-occupants, blatantly ignoring zoning laws and the laws our restaurants downtown have to follow. Bad decisions are my motivation for being here today. More than once, I've called the Groton police during the COVID-19 sequestering period to report adjacent Airbnb where a non-resident allowed 5 New York people to stay. These strolled our neighborhoods downtown with complete disregard for the safety of my older neighbors. More than once, I've called the Groton police on the non-res, allowing transients to hold drunken parties with a dozen of the Boston or New York or friends until 2 a.m. Recently, my neighbor passed away on the street, has turned that unit into a hotel, including the barn. The barn that David's owned is a shop. They were pressing mattresses up in that unit. That's why I was delighted to hear that the Mystic Groton homes, they call it hotels, I call them motels. I treat our neighborhood with these non-res motels, working with Mystic residents and the zoning commission. I know we can enforce our zoning laws. Please help me to show the non-residents that our neighborhood matters to us before it doesn't to anybody.
Does anyone else wish to address this? Anyone with their hands raised?
Can we open up the door now?
Can open that door. This could be a piano.
Tyler Hesper, you can unmute.
Yep, can you hear me? Okay. Tyler Hesper, 29 Route 27 in Old Mystic. Just wanted to address the letter that Paul had talked about, the door-to-door letter. And first of all, I definitely appreciate the efforts doing that as a door-to-door salesman myself. I know how much effort and courage that takes. So I'm sure you guys have gotten bombarded by emails from people seeing those letters. And my concern is that there's a lot of misinformation in that can be very damaging to us. They start out saying that they're hotels, they're calling us an industry, companies, there's trash, litter, noise. It's very damaging and really borderline slander. And again, it seems like the biggest issue we have that the opposing party has is these noise and litter issues. And there's got to be a massive disconnect here because it's not us. And there's a lot of us here speaking about this, but we run our properties very clean. And we're not the ones that are conducting that. And again, I just want to mention that the last meeting, we gave you guys facts, graphs, numbers, figures. A lot of us took our time. We recited our speeches. And this letter was drafted up in about 5 minutes, and it was, spread probably like wildfire across the neighborhood. And now you have a lot of neighbors who may not or probably didn't know there was an issue, and now have this flyer, which is just a bunch of misinformation. And that's, like I said, that's damaging for us. So we took the time, we conducted the research, and the opposition seemed to just run with misinformation. Anyone who wants to see, where our numbers are, where our statistics are, what we're about, it's mystichostsociation.com. We formed a group. We've got a lot of members now, and everything's out there for people to see. So we're giving you guys facts and charts and data, and I'm not seeing that from the other side. All I'm really seeing is just the issue about noise and litter, which we want to figure out when we want to help, but we don't know where those houses are. I think that's all I had. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. Hello.
Jeff Kerr.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Kerr from 6 Ashby Street. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, thank you for your service and time. Just wanted to address a couple things that I've heard come up from folks that are voicing support for these short-term rentals. As the letter my wife and I submitted and many folks submitted clearly states that the biggest issue we see is that the short-term rentals are just not a permitted use. So, if you want to make an economic argument about why short-term rentals should be permitted, by all means, I would invite you to, lobby your town council person and try to get the regulations changed to match your business needs. But as Bruce kind of articulated very well, these are pretty clearly hotels being run in residential zones, and we really think that the onus should be on the folks that are starting these businesses to go out and get these, first of all, permission to operate them, and then the appropriate permits and appropriate, just the appropriate steps should be taken to make sure that they're operating within the law. While it's tempting to run a whole litany of commercial businesses out of one's home, you still need to go through the permitting process that allows us in the first place. And we feel very strongly that the onus should not be on us, the homeowners that are following the law, to then have to go out and enforce the law when there's a authority already in the town to do so. So that's all I wanted to address. Just while the noise and the litter is definitely a very adverse result of this whole just kind of lack of enforcement and lack of regulation for some of these properties, and I'm sure there are folks that are responsible business owners that are running these businesses properly. They're still running a business, and it still needs to be regulated properly before being run and proliferated throughout the neighborhood. That's all. Thank you for your time.
We had somebody,
I'm a newbie, a late comer. Am I permitted to speak on the floor?
no, can't you come up?
Oh, well, I didn't mean, coming from the floor, coming actually from a chair.
We appreciate people to stand rather than lay on the floor.
We want to make sure
So I'm
you're,
totally spontaneous.
would you state your name and address
Yes,
for
I
the
will.
record?
Melanie Barba. I live at 23 Gravel Street on the corner of Clift and Gravel. I've been in this home, I think it's 7 years that I've lived here. And a couple things came to mind just listening to everyone. One is, as a resident of Gravel Street, I own the property across the street, which is on the river. On that property, I have 3 private property, no trespassing signs. Not real welcoming, I admit. However, that's what I've had to do to keep people off that property. I have a hedge, 3 signs, a number of signs have been taken, so then I buy new signs. And I have 4, that's the quickest 3 minutes I ever saw. I have 4 what I call expensive Adirondack chairs on that property. And on a number of occasions, and Renee and Mike can attest to this, there are strangers that just come in through the opening through the hedge, past the no trespassing signs, and sit in the chairs, sit on the arms of the chairs. I've replaced them already twice. And when I ask them, it depends upon my mood, how nicely I ask them, you know, don't you see these signs? And, oh, we're not going to be long, all kinds of silly answers. And when I ask them where they've come from, some are just walking. Some of them have been in the downtown. They're going to stroll gravel. This looks like a nice place to sit. But a number of them have indicated that they're renting up on Pearl Street. I've had people who are coming down Clift. I'm on the corner of Clift and Gravel, coming down Clift with their kayaks to put them in the water, and they're coming directly to my property. And I say, who told you you could do this? Oh, well, we're renting up on Pearl Street. I don't know anyone. Well, that's not true. I don't know you guys over there on Pearl, but you get the picture. So that's what's going on with me, and having just gotten the new tax information and all that, and I'm the only one that's paying for this property, not the people renting on Pearl. The other thing I want to say, the last 2 years I rented in Sarasota, right near Longboat Key, and what they're dealing with this down there. So you have Lido Key, Longboat Key, these homes that are $3, $4, $5 million with huge signs now on them. Stop hotels, stop hotels. So, and I'm going to throw my daughter under the bus because she rented a house on Lido Key last year that somebody owned. She never met the owner. This is what it was, one of these short-term rental deals. She had it for a month. And God bless her, but I wouldn't have wanted to live next to my family that was in that house. She has 4 kids and they each had friends because it had like 8 bedrooms, and God help the neighbors who had, and this is an ongoing situation. They would play music late at night, blah, blah, blah. So that's the end of my story. Thank you.
Yes,
Am I allowed to say something other than what was in my letter? Or
yes,
I
if
am
there's
allowed?
something else. Yes.
You have my letter. I'm Linda
Yes.
Vogel. I live at 358 Pequot Avenue in Mystic. And there was just a couple of things I wanted to say. The first is to echo what you heard, which is my understanding is that we have regulations that prohibit short-term rentals at this time because it's not under permitted use. I think that's really important. We're not asking you to change regulations at this point. I did want to address the notion that the short-term rental monies help the community. And I'm not convinced that that's true. I know that individuals and businesses can earn a great deal of money. But I'm not sure, and I think I put that in my letter, the taxpayers here are the ones who support the school systems, the libraries, the open space acquisitions, the use of the sewer. And it isn't we need our tourists, but it is not the tourist money that does that. They don't pay taxes. So I wanted to say that. Just kind of stress that yes, there's a lot of money there, but I think it's going into individual homeowners. I don't fault anybody. It's just what started as a very small cottage and became an enormous. If we don't do something now, it's really going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the final thing is again about hotels. I realize that a homeowner who rents out one room in their house, maybe for 4 days, a long weekend a week, they're not feeling like it's a hotel. But as this business has grown, you now have, as you've heard many, many times, the large homes, a lot of in and out traffic, people coming in for 4 days a week, 2 weeks and leaving. That's the nature of short-term rental. It's less than a month. And that does put a hotel motel type ambience in the heart of little New England residents. And it's not just New England, as you've also. So that I just wanted to reiterate all of that. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that you serve on this board, all of you, and that you have to do this. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right. Move on to our next item on business. Which is,
They've been sitting down in room 3.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
You want to take a 5-minute break?
Sure, 5-minute break.
Can we take a 5-minute break? Call the meeting back to order. All right, so our next item on the agenda is our site plan 2204 Groton Pump Track 65 and 91 Depot Road. If the applicant would like to make his presentation.
Sure, I'll start off. My name is Brian Kent. I'm a landscape architect with Kent and Cross Landscape Architecture located in Mystic. I'm also a Groton resident. And I am president of Bike Groton, which is the town's bicycle and pedestrian advocacy organization. We're a nonprofit organization founded in 2008 as Mystic Community Bikes, but we've transitioned into an advocacy organization for the last couple of years. And we've been working on a variety of projects. This is our first built project, and it's a bicycle pump track. And what I will do is I'll get into the documents that you've been reviewing and that staff has written a report on. But I'm going to start off with a few slides that I've been using in presentations to various groups and stakeholders. For example, I had lunch with the Groton Rotary today and explained to them what the pump track is all about. And with this first slide, you see the location of the site. It's right at the entrance to Bluff Point State Park, so you know that, but it's the importance of this slide is to show that it's really in the center of town. So it'll attract people from every corner of the town. But you zoom in a little closer, next slide, please. You see the neighborhood context. And this is what's really important about this site that we selected and that the town generously agreed to let us utilize, that the town council is. It's a former industrial site, so it has a history of industrial activity. It was cleaned up and has been used as a town park. And it's really, its only use has been, its only organized use has been a playground And then it has had an open field with a pathway that wraps around and goes into the Aquatic River Boardwalk. If you're familiar with, was one of the original bike head enhancement projects from the late 80s, nice tea project. So that's over here. But what's really interesting is that there are several current and recent projects that converge here. There's the GNS trolley trail, which runs along the old trolley line, Groton Utilities transmission corridor now, that comes into this site. Parks and Rec has been working on extending that pathway along Industrial Drive. In fact, the town received a grant, you may be familiar with this from last year, was awarded a community connectivity grant to build bicycle, pedestrian, and recreational infrastructure in different communities. Groton is one of the few communities in Connecticut to receive it. So the green is the community connectivity route. It takes an existing pathway, which you know runs parallel to Route 1, connects to the community center, and it puts sharrows and signage along Depot Road and the Midway Oval, dedicating parts of the roadway, laneways to bicycle traffic. And then it enters Sutton Park through a little backdoor easement, and then there's going to be a new paved path through Sutton Park. So that's happening this year. I think Public Works is breaking ground any day now, I've been told. The planned Tri-Town Trail terminates here. So that's the trail all the way to Preston through, ultimately we hope through the reservoir property, but currently being built in Ledger through the property. So all these trails and routes converge here at the site. And of course, you know, Bluff Point, there's hiking trails and mountain bike trails. So it's in the center of town. It's near the schools and the parks, the high school, the tech school, middle school. It's adjacent to mountain bike areas. It's within a neighborhood revitalization zone. And that's one of the important things for you all to think about, is that this is over 1,000, I believe around 1,000 residences. There's a lot of kids, adolescents, who, if you ask any of them, they know exactly what a pump track is. I met a little boy who was sitting on a bench down here with his BMX bike, and I told him about the project. And I asked him if he knew what a pump track was, and he said, "Oh yeah." And he was very excited to hear about this. If I ask any of you, before you saw my drawings, what a pump track was, you probably wouldn't know what a pump track was. But the kids that live here know exactly what it is. They're going to be here every day. You can elaborate on what a pump track is. Yeah, I will. So next slide, please. And this is a site. This was like, there was like buildings in here, parking lot. There were industrial uses. Apparently it was a very awful looking site from what I've heard. There's a building slab remaining. We're going to make use of that. You can see the playground, boardwalk, Amtrak. Next slide, please. This is what it looks like from Depot Road, looking in there. Next. And then if you're standing with your back to the boardwalk, so you're looking towards the Amtrak line, you can see the Kenton areas. This is the site right in the center here. Next slide. This is up on that concrete slab and looking into the site here. The river, Quantic River beyond. Next. So this is a facility in Philadelphia. I love to benchmark other communities' experiences and compare them to what we're proposing. So this is the Philly Pump Track, and it's run by a nonprofit in cooperation with the city. And what they do is they have their pump track, like what we are planning to do. They have a storage container, like we're asking for permission to have. And in that container, they keep a fleet of bikes, and these bikes have been donated by bike companies. And on weekends, they pull all the bikes out in the neighborhood, and other people come in and they can check out a bike, and then they can ride on the path. And that's kind of the vision that we're hoping for here. Next, please. And when you have a facility like this, it attracts kids, even kids that don't even have pedals. You know, those are little push bikes, and it attracts families. And these kids learn all kinds of great skills and life lessons about cooperation and athletics and what fun it is to be in good shape. And you get the little kids, yeah, it's just as appealing to girls as the boys, and then you get these guys that look like this who are just ripping through here at amazing speeds. But it's for the folks that might not otherwise be able to buy a bike or have the equipment, that the idea of the community aspect of this is so important, so that we can have the bikes and the helmets and the people that can teach folks in the community how to ride a bicycle in this way. Do I have any more slides? Okay. This is kind of what it looks like when it's finished. This was brand new, so the grass is just starting to grow, but so it's the track, and then it's landscape, and what we're proposing is it's native wildflowers and grasses, that sort of thing that don't need to be mowed. And it's open anytime from late April, early May through about early November. So it can't be used in the wintertime because it's dirt and it's unstable when there's freeze and thaw and stuff like that going on. So it'll have a fence gated lock for the winter, and then it's reopened. Now, if we can afford to pave a pump track, it's much more expensive. We don't have that kind of fundraising capability. We could have a year-round pump track. So maybe someday the town of Groton will upgrade, maybe it's on another site, to a year-round pump track. And so the way it works is it's a continuous circuit of bank turns, and these are called rollers. And theoretically, if it's well designed and built, you could ride this without ever having to pedal. So you use push and you pull the bike. And so you use all kinds of physical biomechanical geometry to accelerate. And it's really an amazing skill once you figure it out. And you put little kids in there and they figure it out just like that. For us, maybe it'll take a little longer, but even you learn to do this. So that's what it should look like. More. This is where this is the plan of it that you got, that you've seen shown on the site. And how about next? There it is close up. You start here, you roll in, you're pumping through either on the right side or left side. You go through a curve, you have back-to-back curves, you're accelerating through all this here, and then back. And then these are the profiles. This is what it looks like. These are like waves, sine waves. They have to be designed geometrically for it to work. It's like if they're too close together, it doesn't work. They're too far apart, slow down too much. So it's just geometry and physics. I think that's the last slide, right? I'm getting tired of talking. Yes, okay. All right.
Oh, can you turn it around?
And do you want me to start on this sheet? Is that why you opened it this way, or you just? Oh. Right. So like I said, this is by Groton's project, but I'm president by Groton, I'm a landscape architect, so I couldn't keep my hands off of it, and this is a result. So it's a set of detailed construction documents, permit drawings. These are all the notes that the contractor must conform with in order to build it, so that it meets all the codes and that it doesn't cause any kind of environmental issues with sediment and that sort of thing. It's a safe job site that's there. This is the existing conditions. The playground is here. This is the perimeter path, and this is the area that's proposed for the pump track. There's existing infrastructure from when I assume when this was a parking lot. There's curb inlets in the middle of the field, and there's these saturation drains, and then there's the concrete pad that was a building foundation. So we've outlined the area of work. We're gonna have utility connections from the street. We have a construction entrance. We have sediment control, fencing, protection on the storm drains. The track is laid out so that the start staging area is on the far end, as far from the playground as it can possibly be. We don't want the older kids next door to the little kids that are in the playground, and that gives them a good separation. And we're doing things like rain gardens connected with overflow pipes so that if they do fill up with water, which is questionable whether they ever would fill up to that point, it would overflow, the standing water would overflow into the storm drains and then from there flow out to the river, but no overland sediment, no drainage from the surface going to the river. So it's all contained. There is a connection to the perimeter pathway, a stone dust path, bike rack, a water bottle fill, like water fountain, a hydrant so that we can use it for construction, have water, and also for maintaining it in the summertime. You want to keep it a little bit damp at times. And ultimately, what we'd like to do, if we can raise the funding, is to have a little platform, like a wooden deck, a 10x14 wooden deck, flush with the start area. They could have a sunshade on in the summertime because this is full sun. There's no shade out here. And that could be a little observation area, a place to hang out, wait while your friends are riding for your turn and that sort of thing. And we've really done our research, and we've looked at pump track construction and design and what's been done in other places. I visited other pump tracks. I've ridden on pump tracks. So I have a really good handle on what goes into it. We have native grass and wildflower plantings to go inside of the pump track area, all the way out to the chain link fence that was surrounded. So it'll be a black PVC covered chain link fence, and then you're back into the turf that's mowed weekly or bi-weekly by Parks and Rec. On the concrete slab, this is where the container that we're asking for would be located. In the future, if we can get that kind of programming going, and we can find a company that would donate bikes and that sort of thing, then we would have the container just sitting right on the slab, nice and clean. There's a drain up there. And that's a perfect place to have that kind of a headquarters for programming activities going on the pump track. And then the rest of this is just how do you build it? It's laid out with radii and triangulation points from points that the town surveyor has set in the walkway that surrounds it for us. Grading and drainage, like I already mentioned. This is an enlargement, shows all the contours of the track. There's really nothing more than about 4 feet high in here. So they range from 1.5 to 2 feet high up to 4 feet. So the start area is up about here. The bank corners that are called the berms, they're about the same height. So it's relatively flat. And it's not like you're starting high and ending low. BMX tracks, you've probably heard of BMX, it's been around for decades. They start on this high platform and then it's accelerate and fly out and around and all this stuff, and then you end at the lowest point. This is all basically flat. So you're working your way through here. And the people that become really good at this can fly through this. It's just amazing to see how skilled people can become to ride this sort of a terrain. And these are the details, the rain garden. This is our rain garden detail. We've got a strip of crushed stone that filters so any sediment that may come in here off the track is captured there. We've got the native plant mix. We've got the pipe. This is like a really state-of-the-art rain garden design. You should use this in other projects in the town. And then we've got, there you go.
Well, okay, we'll just.
And then you can come. And then we've got other solar sediment control measures. You've got a power, like a RV campground power post where you can plug in. because we would have events here, we want a PA and that sort of thing. Bike rack, fencing. We have, if we can't raise sufficient funds, initially we'll put in the foundations for the deck. And then we'll cover them up, and then we can find some generous corporate donor, for example, that wants to have this deck kind of built for them, built, say, with their name on it perhaps, or on the sign anyways. Look to them. And then these are all the utility details, power and water connections. We've talked about utilities, we know what their requirements are. The Connex box. You should all know what that looks like. More about the deck. And that's it. Open it back up. I did not mention the portal.
Brian, did you point out parking?
Parking, parking is the existing parking lot. There's like a dozen parking spaces in there, and your CEO determined that it was sufficient. Did I say that right?
You said the change, there's no change in use.
No change in use, so.
Sufficient to have the existing.
Right. And so, so some of the things that were requested, you know, we started out saying, we just want a contract. And then we got into it and we said, oh, well, we need water and we need electric and we need a fence. And then we started talking to town and they said, well, you know, you really should have a portalet. And you really should have trash and recycling. And you really should have a bike rack. I mean, these kids just throw their bikes around on the ground, but okay, bike rack. And we did all this in the hopes that we can raise the money now to pay for these things. But I think you guys can pay for the portalet. So the parking lot there. So you can just walk through the grass to get here or bike. You can ride, you know, walk on or bike around on the perimeter path. The fire marshal insisted that we have a way for an ambulance to get right up to the fence, because he thinks that people are going to be coming out of here with broken legs. I dispute, but we've got a gate now right here so that ambulance can pull in here and they can get right up close to gurney to haul out all these guys and girls that are injured here. Just a joke. So that's, I think that's everything.
I think he pretty much covered it. We went over the coastal access issues and if there was any disturbance, and this is really a zero-sum project. And nothing else.
Open up to commissioners for questions or comments. I'll start with you now.
Okay, I love the idea of it. I think we'll take a look at other locations where what other locations where these were. Providence has one, but that's paid, right?
There's one at Roger Williams Park that is soil. That was built by volunteers. There's also a concrete track near there, yes.
Okay, that's what I saw. Yes. A lot more formal.
Yeah.
Terrific, actually. It gets to be soil, it can get pretty ragged. I'm assuming that between you guys, it will become ragged, so I guess that's okay. But what I did notice was that, you mentioned the Philadelphia pump track. It's a good to my point here. The Philadelphia pump track, and that's part of Fairmount Park. Actually isn't handy to any neighborhoods, particularly as much as Fairmount Park is, surrounded on all sides. It's an enormous park system. It's part of their recreation program. There's all kinds of other things there that you can get to. This guy's kind of lonely out there. I know when you look at the map, it shows it as a star instead of all. It's right in the middle of town. Well, only if you don't know the town. The middle of town is pretty much where the rest of your all your other facilities are. So my question kind of goes to, and understand the idea, this was available, it was there, it's not being used. I hate going forward with the location of a project just because it's expeditious. Not desperate to get this done today. If it takes a little bit extra time to do it some time later, it is a better plan. So why was this not done kind of at like across, it's kind of like the Groton skate park. It's kind of like that kind of thing. A little more formalized. You're going to have bikes for kids to use. Imagine kids will want to use their own bikes too. Everything's already there, around Groton Skate Park. It's part of our whole recreation system that's going on there. Why was it not considered there?
You're referring to Sutton Park. There is not enough space in Sutton Park.
Well, actually, I took a look at it, and right now, that's kind of like, I have to look at kind of big picture. If I were to just say, let's just find a place to put it, you're right. But in a few years, hopefully only a few years, Claude Chester will be gone. What's planned for there is nothing. And it'll be an extension of park things, and you'll get to play with that area too, and that'll be a great thing. And so what can go there is part of the whole system. This fits. So just wondered if that was just dismissed out of hand because there isn't a place to put it today. That's not a great justification to me.
Are we getting off track here?
Pardon? No, location based on I can't put it there today is not. I'm not buying that. I agree. If you go to try to take this plan, which you don't need to do much to it. I mean, it's well worked out. Everything I like everything about it. And to put it down in Sutton Park, it won't fit. If you move something in Sutton Park, there right now, take a look at a basketball court that's kind of hanging out there. One basketball court. There are lots of places to put basketball courts up and down that area that will serve the neighborhood, and it will serve the exact same people you're trying to serve here. It's in Sutton Park, maybe even better, because everything's already there, and the services are there, the bathroom is there, and parking is there, and the families are already there. So I would think I would bend over backwards to see, first of all, how can this fit in Sutton Park? Now, if it can't, no matter what you do, then I buy it. I'm not sure I buy it just because this was available, because it's kind of hanging out there, except for kids who already know what this is and where it is. It's going to be kind of unknown.
Well, can I respond?
No, please, yeah.
So pump tracks aren't just for kids. They are immensely popular with adult riders. And we didn't just select this site because it happened to be available. We selected it because it is in the right place. And it is on the entrance road to Bluff Point, which is one of the most interesting mountain bike areas in Southeast Connecticut and is loved by the biking community. So this is the gateway to the best mountain biking in our town. And the same people that are going to Bluff Point to mountain bike are going to be here in this pump track. And like I said in the beginning, it's also along the GNS trolley trail, which is the bike route from the east side of town into this area. And it's also directly adjacent to the neighborhood, which of course you agree with that relationship. So we think this is absolutely the best possible place that we could find for it.
I suppose that this was promoted as as you mentioned, it's a good point. The Bluff Point is a fantastic place for that kind of biking. It's also hiking, but I'm sure it's a wonderful thing. And this is sort of a core thing based on that. It shows up on the maps and everything else. It tells me that once maybe wants to be more than what you got here. If it's the place where you want these bikers to go, such as maybe you think of, by the way, you need a shed because you're going to sell drinks because there's going to be a place for people to stop on their way there. Maybe it's not enough. So I'll buy that this is core to the Bluff Point system, not necessarily just town of Groton. It's its own thing.
And if I may, I'm sorry.
And if that's true, then
so just as a testament to the interest in this project, you've been fundraising, and we have received dozens and dozens and dozens of small contributions, over 100 small contributions. And to date have raised $52,000 for private money from all adults. You know, these are all people in the region, not just the town, who have contributed so far to this project.
I don't think any of those people care where it goes. I'll donate to it, and I don't care where it goes. So that part doesn't matter. What matters, all I'm talking about is where this is, and we're taking right now a clean thing that we don't know what to do with, but we're going to put this thing out here. It's going to be kind of in the left field. If, as you say, no, it's actually an anchor point for the Bluff Point riding paths, which are not well marked right now. Do you have any signage that actually takes you to Bluff Point? Say bikes, this is the way to go.
Yeah, I think there's a sign directing people.
across the street from, I've been looking for them. I don't go to Dairy Queen, so I didn't notice, but okay. Yeah. All right, so maybe it's valid. One point is that slab, that you're just going to put a Connex box on. I understand the need of that kind of security in a Connex box, and sometimes they would use Connex boxes for that kind of thing. I'm not all for that as a final solution. That slab is the last location of the train station in Groton, by the way. It's historic, actually. It should have a plaque on it that says, here's what's here. Somehow or other, put a Connex box on it. So I need something better to happen than just plop the Connex.
Historic concrete slab commission.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So a restoration of a building that has rail motifs would be fantastic for us to store our bikes.
Something like that. And that should be the goal. You can start with a Connex box and build it out, so long as it ends up in that place. And while you're on it, maybe on the side of the Connex box, put a plaque up, because that's.
I haven't heard that before. It's interesting.
I just took a tour of the area. It's all still underneath there. It's all the rail lines, everything is still underneath all that brush. And that's the last place the train station was. Right? Midway was. That's correct. And the turntable, the grounds of the turntable are still there, and all this other stuff is still there. Just kept a bushwhack to get through it. And that's the thing you can see.
That's interesting.
So now you want the plaque on the common.
Well, I like it on the building or on the slab or something, but not just pop it down.
Al, they'll be renting it out for STR.
You should make a contribution for that.
Oh, I don't want to go on name.
Michael.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Number of years back, there was some remediation that was done. Is this where it was done?
Was-
Removed on the site, so it's clean now, right? And that work is complete. Good, okay, that's good. Lighting, is it gonna be, are we with no lighting at night? Are those kinds of things well, never mind. I would like to think that you'd be able to put it in underground.
We'll have power to the site if over time there's a demand for, night riding.
Yeah, I think there will be.
And
Sounds like this is gonna be like a 24-hour.
there's some ambient light out there. You don't need very much light.
It's a local resident.
Yeah, I just had bathrooms, trash, benches.
Yeah.
Is there places for people to sit, or is it
We're relocating one of the existing benches.
from the park?
It's on the nearby walkway, and we're putting it on, so that it's facing into the park.
Okay, that's fine. And utilities are all underground, or
They will be.
and the deck, we've got the deck drawn in here now. And are we just anticipating that? And that's what gonna be its location?
Yeah, I mean, we're detailing it
That's good.
exactly.
Okay, all right. So
With
then
construction details and location.
that's the only questions I have. Sounds great.
Personally, I think the location is perfect. And so I bike, over to Bluff Point, and the park is nothing there. Got that strange walkway and stuff
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
when you ride the
Yeah.
walkway around it, kind of fun.
So I think it's ideal, really, because what you're doing is really going to Bluff Point, and then you have the option if you want now or then in the future to do your pump track and get you ready for Bluff Point. But
one of my questions is actually then the river walkway, is that the Paquonic, what's it called, Paquonic Walkway? Yeah, because when I bike on it, it's okay for, one mountain bike, but you don't want to run into anybody.
I don't think you're supposed to ride your bike.
There goes the lawless.
Yeah, there you go.
I saw
Now you're gonna get a citation.
Private property, do not enter again, we heard.
I'll go on one of those Drive 55 tours of the whole thing. But I was just wondering, are there any plans to widen that walkway or improve it a bit?
So on the list of projects that I've asked Rick Hanover to look at is to do an assessment of that walkway. It's 30 plus 1990, so it's 30 plus years old. And we're having trouble now with the nails popping up, and I think that's just because of settling. And so if the undercarriage of the walkway is still in a condition that we can actually tear the upper part off and rebuild, we are going to be looking at extending that, widening it, because right now it's really not wide enough for somebody to ride. And if somebody's got a stroller or just walking, it's really kind of narrow and all those jagged turns. It creates an unsafe situation. So short answer, yes, it's something that we would consider, but I wouldn't see Steve allowing us to reset 8x8s or whatever any closer to water. But if we can somehow create a deck that kind of extends out without interfering with the soil and the waterway closer to the water, then yes, we would look at it.
I think it'd be good. There's such a great connection after Route 1. And then with the trolley trail from the schools and all, I think that'd work out really well. I don't have any more questions now.
I think this is a great location. I don't think we should wait for a better location for it. And, for instance, Clychester School, by the time that all settles down, it could be years, the way things are going with schools and stuff. So I wouldn't want to wait. And actually, I'd prefer that property to be used a little for a better use. I think this is a great idea. I think it'll be very popular, and I think it's a good location.
Sure. So is the town of Groton Recreation a co-applicant in this, or have you submitted a letter regarding this project one way or the other?
Don't have a formal agreement. We have like a gentleman's handshake that Mike Groton is going to fundraise and to some extent oversee the construction of it and then turn it over to the town. And Mike Groton has said that they would assist with the maintenance of it. And we did, when we talked with Brian about the design, one of the issues that we were concerned about was how much more maintenance, and they included that in their design by doing wildflowers and low growing grass. So it's going to minimize the additional maintenance that we're going to that our staff would have to deal with.
What I couldn't tell was, does the ownership change here from the town? Ownership doesn't change. So the town has the liability for this? Is that how it works?
It's town owned, right, and the town would assume the liability. And I wouldn't consider the liability of the pump track to be any greater than the skate park.
Okay, thank you. So the last question is the pump track regulated like a swimming pool? Like, 8 to 10 is Thrive 55 and 10 a.m. is someone else, or is it just whoever lines up? First come, first serve?
Well, that's it's out of the starting gate. That's how it will be run. It'll just be open. And then if there's a pattern that develops, Parks and Rec will be watching the usage.
Yeah, and you can, at the skate park, there's a whole range of users, and
there's kind of this culture where, if somebody's riding, the rest of the riders stand back, they let them ride. And it's, all different skill levels at the same time. So the little kids are going and the more skilled riders stay back and then the more skilled riders go. So there's kind of a give and take. And I would expect this same type of relationship at the pump track.
That's all my questions. Thank you. Is this manned all the time? So you mentioned the Connex boxes with, I guess, full of bikes. Are those, for people that don't have them?
Those would only be
obviously-
available when it's staffed. So it's not staffed on a regular basis, but if we are lucky enough that the bike company would donate a fleet of bikes, and that has to happen first. Or some grant is available that allows the town to purchase the bikes. Then it would be up to Parks and Rec to have certain days, like weekend days, probably starting in May or June. There might be 1 or 2 Saturdays a month, whatever they feel like they can manage, where they would have someone there, for certain hours, and they would be a combination of here's a bike, here's a helmet, but it would also be here's how you
Here's
do
how
it.
you do it. Yeah, that's
And
what
then
I would.
there's also their option of they could possibly have classes. Because there are people in town who are qualified to instruct how to do this. And it's not like mountain biking where you're dodging rocks and trees. And this is pretty low key, and low risk.
Right, yeah, that concept, location, I'm good with all that. The lights question got answered. So you are affiliated with Parks and Rec at some turnover time?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Like it will be advertised, like I'm afraid that this is gonna fall into.
this becomes Park and Rec's project to operate. And if they want to run programs.
Yeah, so somehow this will be in their book and.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect, perfect. And is there such thing as sanctioned events? Is there races or?
There are races, there are
Timed events?
demonstrations. I mean, actually, there are races, but this is not going to be a racetrack. There are types of pump track racing, but it's not this.
Yeah, or
It's
just time.
basically where you have 2 identical courses side by side, and they're more temporary, like at festivals. The company comes in, builds it, and then you have professional mountain bikers and BMX racers that come in and they start simultaneously and they run through parallel courses. And that's pump track racing. That's not going to happen here. However, I could see where a professional rider would show up on a Saturday, it would be advertised, it would be an event. And and all the people that are interested in this and neighborhood kids would show up to watch people who are experts do this, because when they get on these things, they're going airborne, they're doing tricks, they're doing things that are just kind of mind-boggling.
Without pedaling.
Without pedaling, yeah. It's
Awesome. All right, that's
Hawks at bike ride.
that's all I got. Great idea.
I had a few questions. This is really this is going to be run by Parks and Rec, I take it.
It is.
And you'll have operating instructions and maintenance manual for it, because reading that plan, you have to do maintenance or inspection work every day. There's a note on the,
Yeah, we have a maintenance guideline on the,
it says daily, you've got to go inspect.
yeah, it should be checked out. And it's more sensitive in like the beginning and the end of when you could have different high low temperatures and that sort of thing going on.
But I mean, we ought to have something that says what to do with it, who to operate it, what are the hours going to be established, when it's going to be open. Because it's in a chained off fence area.
We don't anticipate daily closing or nightly closing. It's when it's open in May, it's open through the year unless we have like a hurricane or something.
I don't think we want people using it at night.
Well, but it's like the skate park, right? The skate park's not
locked every night.
No, the skate park is not locked every.
Oh, but do you have hours that where it's supposed to not be used?
The use is supposed to, when it's dusk. Right
Yeah,
now.
that's fine. I'm not saying it has to be any specific hours, but
Right.
public ought to be aware of
Oh, yeah.
when they can use it, like posting a sign that says
Yeah, there will be an information sign.
Yeah. and it
closes
would
at
be,
dusk or something.
Sign with, etiquette. If somebody else is on the course, don't ride too close to them.
So you put a
those
sign,
kinds
yeah.
of- Oh, yes.
I just worried about. And there was a write-up in, or a note or something about potential wooden banked area. You gotta put that in?
Well, only if we can raise enough money. It's just one of these enhancements that we're not confident that we'll be able to raise sufficient funds in, so it could be a later phase.
If, so it's not for right now.
Unless we can raise, if we can raise sufficient funds, which could be close to $100,000 to do everything on the plan, then we would try and build it.
Yeah, but are there specs on what you can do with the bank area? I'm worried about somebody going off the thing.
Oh, you're not going that fast. I mean, unless
Just
you're a
because-
professional.
Yeah, but you may gotta get kids and they'll try anything.
We're all skiers here, you see, so we know.
Don't we want our kids to?
Well, I don't mind if they do it. I
Right.
just wanna make sure that the town's not in
I mean, we're
trouble.
only talking about like this high. I mean, it's dirt. I mean, this is,
Well, they talking,
The
not
hot-
the dirt part, it was the wooden.
the
it's-
skate park has higher features than this one.
Yeah.
Considerably higher, and that's all concrete. And they're on crazy little boards with wheels.
Yeah, these are crazy, crazy.
You're not making me feel better. Would you rather ride a bicycle or sit on a skateboard?
I don't know.
Good.
Yes. And the fencing along tracks right away, is sort of weak. The town write them a letter and ask them to put in fencing like they have down at Spices, with the wrought iron. I'm worried about kids, daring somebody to go into the area. It's not safe because it's crazy. Right?
we'll take a look at it. Yeah.
Not for us to do it, but
Yeah.
Amtrak should be looking at, since it's gonna be an active park. Right now, it's passive, nobody goes in there. And we're gonna change the culture of users.
That's a good point.
I don't wanna see somebody go. And that derelict boat that's in water, it's been there for a while. Should the DEP be told to get rid of it? Huh? What?
We can make them aware of it, sure.
Well, you're gonna get more people down there. Right now, you probably don't get too many people. It looks terrible. Right there. Instead of them going out and picking on everybody, they ought to do something. The phasing on the work. Is that obvious what that means? Do you have to complete one phase to start the other? I don't know who's gonna be overseeing the construction or whether things are critical or not, as to whether you have to complete one phase to get to another.
Basically, yes. The project will be publicly bid. So a general contractor will submit a bid for the project, but their bids will be broken down by phases so that, there's not sufficient funds to build all the phases. They'll just build 1, 2, and 1. And 2.
But do they have to be in order or? I mean, I'm worried about a contractor works on his own. He says, well, I got one guy that can do this thing on phase 6 and it's not intended to do that until phase 5 is done.
But there's a
clear.
logical sequence,
No,
and it's hard to describe in notes. But like, for example, we may not have the funding to put in the water fountain and the electrical hookup, but we would do the trenching. We put in the conduit.
Who makes those decisions? I mean,
Well, so the arrangement we have is that this project will be bid out publicly so that the town runs the project. Contractors will have to have all the insurance and certifications to work for. And my company, Kent Ross, will serve as the owner's representative, so we will be the town.
you'd be
representative.
overseeing that.
So we will make frequent inspections and we know how to build these things, so we'll be out there and we're donating our services to the town. We've donated our services to create these documents.
Mhm. Well, I'm just worried that somebody will pick it up. and
Now, there will
misread
be
it, or-
professional.
As long as you're looking at overseeing it, then you can keep the contractor honest.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Because I just seen too many people go say, I'll do it this way, and then they go off and do it something else. It's not right. In too many cases. That's all I have. Everyone have any?
One little one about the fence, which I see you've got detail for a 4-foot fence. Is it typically 4 foot? There's also mention of 6-foot fence.
This would be a 4-foot fence, but some of the standard details refer to different size options just in those standard details. And then so manufacturers create many of these details that we use, and they list their options, but we specify in the drawings that it's a 4-foot fence. So that's what you're going.
Anyone have any other questions? You have a motion. Do applicants say this motion?
Now you can say yes.
Now we don't know. You have a list of any of these technical concerns that have been raised? Could we identify specific?
I think that was just in the notes, and she also has a list of items.
Oh, but I don't know. I'm upset with or surprised with the fact they gotta inspect things every day.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue. We do inspections, different facilities.
Well,
Regularly.
I'm not saying it has to, but I just think we ought to understand what is necessary to maintain it. And it ought to be written down somewhere.
That will be easy enough.
Absolutely.
I'm fairly certain that maintenance requirements listed on the drawings.
Yes.
Which would apply to.
Yeah, but the drawings are there just to get approval, and then they have to be implemented by something.
We'll create a maintenance manual together and.
Or just, I don't know, like how you control them.
Yeah, well, we have inspection schedules for all fields, skate parks and basketball courts and tennis courts.
You just add it, is it?
We'll just add that to the
Yes,
list.
yeah.
Those are monthly, so.
Well, I think it was.
Initially, you know, until the whole thing gets settled.
I think it's so you don't get ruts in there.
You know, the material that they put together for this application was designed to minimize daily maintenance. It's not just we're going to grab a pile of dirt and throw it in and round it. I mean, there's
technical specs to the type of material that they're putting together, and a lot of it is clay-based, so that it sustains itself and holds up over the course of time. I mean, there will be some, but
Well, you'll learn by experience.
yeah, exactly.
So you'll just incorporate
Right.
the experience into what you have.
Yes.
We make a motion.
You wanna make a
Sure. Motion to approve site plan number 22-04 for a bicycle pump track 65 and 91 Depot Road. The following modifications, technical items raised by staff shall be addressed.
There a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion to approve site plan 2204. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. And we have the
CAM motion to approve site plan application for SIT 22-04 based on the following findings and conditions. The commission hereby finds that the application as modified is consistent with all applicable goals and policies of CGS 22A-92 and incorporates all reasonable measures which would mitigate adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and on existing and future water dependent activity.
There a second? Second. Moved and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion for the CAM for site plan 2204. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried unanimously. Good luck with your home.
Thank you very much.
You have to have a special kind of bicycle.
Not necessarily, a mountain bike.
I have a dozen bicycles in my garage. That I'd like to get rid of.
I mean,
Without it, you probably don't want them.
I'm gonna be in DC. I know that I usually work.
1940. Columbia.
No, three,
Newsboy.
sorry. You should have a forum, but it may be an important meeting too.
Yeah.
That's
All
the
right.
problem.
Okay, moving on to new business, new applications.
No, we don't.
Referrals, we have a Stockton referral for Whalers Inn on 11 Cottrell Street.
This is an application that Stonington is considering, the exterior renovations and then changing the use from 5 approved residential units to 5 hotel suites. And then changing a portion of the first floor from retail to hotel, office lobby. And then some renovations, significant renovations on the outside.
So it's a legitimate hotel.
There you go.
Anyone have any concerns with this? Doesn't really impact the town.
Still look like an apartment.
Yeah, probably clean it up. And it sounds like a little, looks like be an improvement. And then we have ZBA 22-02 Sam's Food Store drive-in.
It's an existing gas station with a small retail building to the rear. It's in between South Pleasant Valley Road and Route 12, just north of Cardinal Honda. The proposal is to take down the structures that are there and build a convenience store and gas station. So the variances here are a drive-through in the front yard. They have 2 front yards, as well as adding 2 gas pumps.
This is the one at Pleasant Valley South and Route 12.
It's sandwiched in between those two, across those, it's
On that
near,
little triangle lot.
no. It's just north of Cardinal Honda. It's across Pleasant Valley Road from Pleasant Valley School.
Oh, further up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah, it's an existing gas station.
But we're making the non-conformance worse by adding 2 more.
That's what they're asking for the variance, or to add 2 additional pumps. No additional tanks.
Two additional.
Comments
Yes,
on this?
pumps, yeah.
That's what they're, aren't they allowed to do 50%?
They can expand up to 50%. They're just asking for a variance to put in those two pumps.
Is that the WRP?
It is. That's why.
Yeah, okay, so then I would have an issue.
Well, that's what I was more concerned with, the non-conformance
Mhm.
or prohibited activity was.
Right, well, that's why they're asking for a variance.
So I have a concern with adding more gas pumps in the WRP.
That's what I think we should, I thought that was, we should make that as a comment.
Okay, any concerns about the other variance?
No. There's difference between just changing the dimension or grading.
Usually,
Non-conformance is prohibited.
usually when we talk about increases to an existing non-conformance, it's usually an opportunity to upgrade everything. Are they talking that kind of stuff? Because usually like catch basins, we usually,
I mean, they're totally rebuilding this site. Everything's coming down and totally rebuilding it. So you will see that. But you're right, there are two different ways they could go about this. They could either ask for a variance to add the two, or they could apply for the special permit to expand it by, whatever percentage this is up to 50.
and how many pumps they have now?
I believe they have 4.
There's 4 pumps?
I think so.
And they want to make it 6?
I am. Let me get the file.
Huge.
Isn't it on the drawing?
I can't open the drawing. It's
I couldn't
frozen.
either.
Yeah.
I can't get to it.
Look at that.
I guess it's just a move of 6. It's 6 is what.
6 two-sided pumps.
I thought that it said there were 2.
6
I mean, there are
rows.
4 existing. I think that's.
So 6, so you have 24 pumps, 6 rows?
No,
6 two-sided pumps.
6.
Right.
Right now there are 4.
No, right now, there are 6 two-sided pumps.
Well, they are.
Look right on there.
Right, and then, okay, you're right. And I'm seeing on here, on the proposal, there's 8. So
Okay.
they are.
Oh.
6 to 8.
There we go.
Oh, it's 6 to 8.
Yeah, the canopy as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, have we written, what is the consensus among people? I mean, I would be strongly opposed to it.
The gas station.
Hmm?
Yeah,
6
to
is a
the-
big gas
to
station.
the increase.
We're opposed,
Yeah.
opposed to the increase in the number of
Yeah.
space.
It's just not, this is a matter of course.
But we will get all the upgrades regardless.
And you will see the site plan.
Yeah. We have to formally say this, we need a motion, or just
No, I
consensus.
think that you are opposed to that
The
particular.
increase. in the number of homes. So the next item, commission reports, reported chair. Had nothing to report a commission, you had something.
Yeah, sure. I was just, I'd been contacted late last week by one of the 2 applicants in the data center, the last applicant, and he wanted to talk about the moratorium. And I simply said, number one, that it's only one place I can talk about the moratorium, that's within planning and zoning. I advocated very similar to the citizens that came before us tonight. We do have avenues as far as public comment is concerned, either in writing or you show up in front of the commission. Those are the only 2 forums that we could talk, and he was amenable to that, but clearly wanted to speak about the moratorium. And the conversation ended.
We had something to do with definitions or?
I didn't listen.
No, I mean, he may want to just write us.
My point is right. Put whatever you say, we have the two avenues, so please use one of those two avenues.
And at this point, since the hearing is scheduled, we really should wait until the public hearing.
Well, it might be something to discuss. Yeah.
Well, unless it's definite, it's a definite.
At the hearing, yep.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
Yes, I had sent a thank you to Deb for getting that horrendous sign off of the spot. I just hope there's not going to be another one going up like it was last time.
Yeah, I sent that on to Tom, so.
I did appreciate that.
Big banner?
I saw the huge
Oh,
banner,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. And I think this is the place for it. We really need to do something about short-term rentals. And not just wait and wait and wait for, I don't know, reports and consultants and so forth. I think we just need to be a little more active and make this a real priority. And I think we've discussed this a few meetings ago about making it a priority. And I really feel for these people, whether they own one or they live there and they rent their cottage. And I mean, there's so many different permutations to this. But this is a huge issue, and I don't think we should just sit here and say, okay, we're going to have someone look at it. We need to take some action on it.
So we have hired Horsley Witten. They've given me several dates for a workshop in June that we will poll you on. So we're definitely moving forward. They're looking at all of the research we sent to them. They will probably contact a number of the folks who have spoken here. And to get some input from the community before they draft up regulations.
Okay, I think it's important for the people out there to know that we're not just sitting here, that we are being active and to have staff say things like, we are making progress, we are working on this. I think it's important that people know that we're taking some action.
Those are the ones that I've spoken with, they're aware.
Is there a place for this on the town website? I mean, we started doing the oral school kind of, or get some traction there. Yeah, here's what's happening.
Absolutely. And Horsley Witten is really good at that. So yeah, absolutely.
Populate that, say, here's where we are.
So we see that workshop first, so before us taking any action, which I'm not questioning it. Okay.
We need the workshop.
Right, because the process is, I mean, I read some of the letters and they clearly don't know the process. So I'm not judging the letters, but their belief in what we can and can't do is it's not correct, right? My opinion. So I just think even publicizing what we're maybe doing with Horsley Witten, if we can, or simply let them to do it. As you say, Deb, they're good at it, which I agree. We've seen them before work with the town. So it's just at that point, I think we need to communicate. I think as Barbara's point is that there is a push behind this and we're looking for as effective and efficient process as possible, as quickly as possible. I think that's a nice, which I'm sure you can tell Horsley Witten, right? Was a nice thing to do.
Thank you. Maybe I said it much better than I did.
I know I missed one of those meetings, but have we got an official rundown from, the law that says that we need to do something? Has somebody, or our zoning enforcement, has he declared that our regulations as written permit them?
So I'm not the zoning official.
Okay.
And so here's my understanding of this. Thank you. Both the current zoning official and the immediate past zoning official, Kevin Quinn, both have said we don't regulate short-term rentals. My understanding that there's nothing in writing. Okay, this is just conversation. My understanding is they don't regulate short-term rentals because they don't regulate long-term rentals. They don't regulate any kind of renting of someone's house. Their view is if it is a house with the owner living in it, it is used, the use is a residence. If there's someone else living in it, the use is still a residence. That's their opinion on it. Again, not in writing, that's just what they have.
Hmm.
So that's why they tell people, we don't regulate it.
Yeah, putting a very uneducated lawyer hat on, but if somebody's getting a 1099 or some kind of tax benefit from having this business over here, I mean, that's not a residence in my mind.
I mean, again, their feeling is it's being used as a residence. The use hasn't changed. I mean, the town doesn't regulate whether or not you can rent your property to someone for a year.
I would respectively
I mean, we don't,
say that a hotel is a residence.
I was going to say the same
Yes.
thing.
Again, I'm not the zoning, official, that's where we're at, is that they've told folks for 10 years, we don't regulate it.
But I think we have to define what a short-term rental is.
Absolutely.
First of all,
And I think, right.
put it in writing.
The fact that people are living in a house does not make it a residence in my mind, because we open up the door to a whole lot of other
But I
activities.
think we would have to write down what's the definition.
Well, where was it? Because we just changed a hotel into apartments.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. The buildings are still the same. They kind of rearranged the way the rooms look inside. Kitchens aren't even any different.
Was zoned for the more intensive use stuff.
Zoning was in alignment.
In fact, that's a place where we wouldn't care.
Well, but that's
As it
what
turns
it
out.
is, and we regulate. the
However, it
use.
came to us because it's change, it's a
Right.
change.
Right.
Change of use. Yeah.
Well, it was a less intensive use. Though.
It's a less intensive use, but it's a change. We're saying it is change, so it's not the same use.
It was a different
Residence
use.
versus residence.
That's right.
It's a
Correct.
different use.
Correct. Yeah,
But I
no,
think
absolutely.
where you get into trouble is when you're saying renting. Renting it, is it a rent as a residence or renting as a short term? That's where we have to define this.
And that's what a zoning regulation would do. That is what an ordinance would do. And again, as you heard from the town attorney when he was here a couple of meetings ago, anything that you adopt is going to impact new short-term rent.
Well, I don't know.
For zoning, for zoning.
I would question that because it's not defined. I mean, we're defining short-term rental as a specific thing. For purposes of clarification, really.
And I would imagine regulating. I mean, again, this is something we'll discuss with
Well,
Horsley
that's-
Witten. That's right.
Right, it's just not the definition, it's regulation.
I would like to, just as a, throw this out for a conversation, I would like to handle it as a pre-existing nonconformance. If we somehow restrict those people. There's plenty of things that we,
That's exactly what it would be.
yes,
That's right. It would, if you adopt a regulation that by short-term rental regulates it in some fashion, anyone that doesn't comply with that is a pre-existing non-conforming. And any change to that pre-existing non-conforming use, when it changes, it has to comply with the zoning regulations.
right. Yeah. One of the, just if I could take 2 more minutes.
Locking the gate after the.
Well, yeah.
And that's why I think initially you folks wanted to do this in conjunction with an ordinance for the council.
Exactly.
Capture-
That was what the purpose.
Exactly. So I've spoken with the town manager, the council is becoming aware of the work that you're doing, so, and we'll probably be following.
If someone were to contact the zoning official now and ask for a letter defining whether or not those are allowed, what are we going to see?
I don't know.
So that's my concern. And because this commission is working hard on this, and then we would be entirely undermined.
That's why we put it on.
Well, but I mean,
We would notify the letter.
I don't know how.
What if that
quick
took
letters
place,
go
we could
out when
also
they're
make a move.
requested.
I don't know if there's a time frame.
Is there
have to respond.
It's not like, so I'm wondering if that's something that, I mean, the zoning official, and I'm really appreciative of these correspondence we've been getting. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't either have a conversation with them, or we shouldn't take it upon ourselves to make a decision in the more immediate. And then if we, you could say, then, okay, but this is how we're going to regulate them. I don't know. If that were to happen, if the zoning official were to write a letter, then we're bound by that because he acts as our agent.
Right, and that's right.
And then all this, then we would have to have an ordinance in order to deal with anything in any other way. What would be grandfathered?
We can appeal that.
You can, but I think you're in that same position regardless.
Yeah.
Because for a number of years, they have verbally told folks not
And that-
regulated,
that
and people have made
means something.
decisions.
Yeah, that means something.
People have made decisions based on that
No, I
conversation.
get it. I
Yeah.
just, I was kind of like that was one of my concerns is that once that letter is written, then you're.
But we could also say, oh, sorry.
No, but you can appeal it. We can.
Well, we can now because we're gonna know about the letter because
Yeah.
they're sharing them with us, but this wasn't done in the past.
Can't we request, until Witten Horsley completes their work, that no letters are written by the zoning official? We can request that, right? Regarding this matter, because it's under advisement.
I don't think so, but I'll check with the town. I don't think so. I don't think you can tell the zoning official not to respond to someone who is asking for an opinion in writing about a certain topic.
Or doesn't he come? I got the impression he's supposed to come back and talk to other people, the staff.
Oh, he does.
So
He does.
you're aware
He
of
does. He does. But I mean, I'll certainly put that on his radar, and certainly invite him to the workshops.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Just so he knows what we're thinking. And we know what he's
Yes.
thinking too. Yeah. Right, but we want to see what he's thinking at the
He
same
does,
time.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, Kevin used to come to, various
yeah.
meetings.
And the thing for me is that many of you who are up or were on the zoning wrote these regulations, and then they're being interpreted differently than what you imagine, what you thought they may have meant.
Right, but that's
Well-
why I think we need to change the whole process with the zoning enforcement officer. Because we're finding out things either a year after the fact, or maybe we'll see it in our package after it's written. But we should be working together, because this is our agent. To me, an agent
No, I think
is
that's,
someone
That's what I mentioned
that
to
would
Debbie
be in here
last
early.
time. That, I thought that he worked for us and he enforced the intent of what we were trying to write. And it wasn't, this other intent.
I mean, he reads, again, he's a certified zoning official, he's required to do continuing education in order to keep his certification. He reads what the words are in the zoning regs and interprets them. He doesn't, you folks can't say, no, you're supposed to say this. He is supposed to be sort of an impartial judge of what those zoning regulations say. And I think, as I've said to a couple of you, Diane and I were surprised by some of the interpretations, and that's why you saw some changes coming to us. Like, okay, that's not what we meant when we wrote it that way. But that's how you're interpreting it. We need to make it more
well, that's
clear.
why it's also critical that when Horsley Witten is there, that our zoning, what if we get another zoning official in the future? I mean, people interpret things.
It's already the second or third. I think maybe one of the issues coming out of the workshop is we look at the process as far as that's concerned, as far as the ability to make those decisions on a day-to-day basis for what could be perceived as minor things is a necessary part of the job. But for instance, why we're a little gun shy is to say that a telecom center is the same thing as a data center, which we know is not. I mean, it's not.
Right, and then you don't have public input either.
Right.
You have to, especially.
I mean, you got it like a subject matter expert right here. And so I didn't weigh in. What? I didn't know. I didn't weigh in. I understand, but I mean, wouldn't have that have been a useful conversation before he would have been effective?
But if you go online, you can find a definition of a data center, and it does say it's comparable to a telecommunications.
Not a hyperscale data center doesn't.
No, it's the hyper part.
That's right.
And
Tier
that's-
4 hyperscale.
And
is
that's
different.
what the difference is.
That's right.
that we have to define.
Correct.
No, but I mean, that's why I think he would get in trouble that way because things have changed probably when people were first talking about data centers.
Sure.
Versus what they evolved into.
Yeah. No
Is
doubt.
it useful to see job descriptions for the zoning official and the zoning enforcement officer?
I've seen that, and you would not, I've seen it in other towns.
So is it
I've read the
useful?
definitions. You do
Like
not
that
see
one?
the open language that we have.
But for legislation.
I'm gonna take one. Yeah.
So this-
I read it off.
So I like to move on.
Yeah, thank you.
Move on. Say some of
so
it.
big discussion.
But to sum up, we'll send you out the dates. Of course, we would, it's available. Just so you're available.
Right.
Okay. Now we have a report of, anybody else have a report of staff? Is that your staff report?
No, I actually have a couple of things.
Oh.
So one of the town councilors has put together a working group to come up with a complete streets policy. And we had our first meeting and there were no planning and zoning commissioners there. So I think I'd like to have one of you attend. We're meeting like maybe once every 2 weeks. And I don't think it'll go on very long because the whole goal is to put together a policy to take it to the council, but we want it to be workable. You know, there are members of Parks and Rec on it, Public Works, planning, but I really think it would be valuable to have a planning and zoning commissioner. Volunteers. Excellent. Okay, good. Okay. And then the other thing I just want to put on your radar, you'll get notice of this. There will be a visioning session for the area around Claude Chester in early June. So let's talk about what all we want to see down there. It'll be on June 6th at the senior center, and we will send out notices to you all.
I just want to make a pitch to you. We're doing an age-friendly planning meeting on June 2nd at the senior center. So age-friendly, we've been designated an age-friendly community by AARP.
What does age-friendly mean?
It means that ARP has given us this designation, so we join a network of other towns and cities that are age-friendly communities, and as such, we are asked to put together a committee, which we have, and to put together a kind of a policy guideline document, with goals and actions for more livable community for all ages. So they've started drafting that document, and then we're going to have a public meeting to talk about it with everyone. So there'll be a notice for this. It's the week before the visioning session. If anyone wants.
Can I just ask a quorum question? Because I don't understand. Because in 2 weeks, we believe 3 of us are not going to be here.
I only know of one. Who else?
Sue, Barbara, and myself
Okay.
in 2 weeks. So does that still allow with 4 a quorum?
Three's a quorum.
I just want to make sure. Sorry. Thank you.
You don't realize that.
That's in 2 meetings, not 2 weeks, different issues. The world's opening up, Jeff. 2 weeks.
Not a conspiracy.
Not yet.
We'll be in different places.
As long as we have.
I don't think I'm staying in any short-term rentals when I'm done.
Beautiful hotels. Don't have to.
Or as long as we're not at 4, then you can have tide goals. No, I'm serious.
You're going to be at 4.
No, that's what we have to be careful.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we have.
You can't all go to the same place.
No, I-
Oh, I see.
There's so many
No, we've had.
close votes on this commission.
No, but on planning commission, we did have. A
2 and 2.
No, it didn't turn out that way, but the concern was that because we had some controversial items going on.
Yeah.
At the time. Yeah.
Typhoid
And,
loses.
and the applicant could say he doesn't want to have the vote that night.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. So
Come
does
on,
anybody
Mr.
have
Chairman.
anything else?
We'll be back.
I give her up.
Quite a cold.
So, no other things on staff. Okay, so the official interpretations, we have that application updates. We have
They were
that.
interesting to read.
Yes. And the AFP report, and we have the Connecticut Federation News.
read them all.
That newsletter, wasn't there something good in that?
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
when
and
I
it was
read
like, ooh, that sounds like it's hitting home. But I
Well,
can't
maybe
remember it.
Maybe the title interested me.
No, we focus on the use of the land, not the user.
Oh,
Non-conforming use created by a stipulated judgment.
Where's that?
Legislative update.
I don't remember anything that was. The one that really was unusual was that. It's in Massachusetts.
But there was another one too.
Oh, it's actually use versus ownership. Hmm?
But there was another article in another text that's been taken its way through about basically the right to rent your property.
No one else has anything, I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
So
For a second. Moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Actually, I thought-